Batman comics have ironically taken a place in the backseat recently. With Batman creeping into the mainstream, his comic books aren't really a strong selling point for DC anymore, and instead more focus has been shifted to his live action or animated movies, TV shows, or his widely successful video games. Most people now associate Batman with Christian Bale, Robert Pattinson, Ben Affleck, or the Arkham series rather than his actual comic books. However, we'd like to shine some importance on some of the greatest Batman comic books of all time that deserve to be read by all Batman fans. So for this video, we decided to read and rank some of the most popular Batman comics of all time, so you won't have to.
Number 10.
Starting at the bottom of the list, we have everyone's favorite Batman The Long Halloween. I know what you're thinking, this guy's lost all his marbles, but let us explain. To begin, The Long Halloween by Jeff Loeb is a mixture of a grounded and fantastical take on the Batman mythos. Whilst following the grotesque villains of Gotham, the main focus is a murder mystery about Gotham's ruling crime families, depicting Gotham as a battle on two fronts. However, the reason why we believe this book isn't as high as the rest is that it is a Harvey Dent story. Dent's transformation into Two-Face is a cool exploration of how Gotham breeds its villains. However, one thing we both cannot stomach is the art style. Tim Sale, who is a talented artist in this story, draws some of the hardest Batman art to look at. Understandably, the character designs are made in a grotesque way to emphasize the villainy of Gotham, but many of these character designs become caricatures, removing a lot of the depth from the designs for a more comical look that can really distort the reader's immersion. One of the worst designs in my opinion has to be Selina Kyle. I get the angular approach Sale was going for, but man, did he really have to sell us that she was very much a smooth criminal.
Number 9.
Moving on to a hot take, but Dark Victory is better than The Long Halloween. With the pre-established characters from The Long Halloween, Dark Victory is able to almost focus on the chaos of The Long Halloween, to present a more structured take on Two-Face's revenge. In the book, Loeb does a great job showcasing Batman's willingness to work with others to build a better Gotham. With a great introduction to Dick Grayson as Robin, the story makes itself stand out by comparing Robin to Harvey Dent and illustrate how the two of them are the byproducts of Gotham's nasty environment in an emotional and heartfelt way that makes us sympathize with Two-Face and the villains of Gotham, whilst understanding the mission of Batman and Robin. All in all, by building out Gotham and its characters, Loeb elevates the mystery and intrigue from The Long Halloween to make an overall better story. Another reason this book has the edge is that you get more used to Sale's art style and can better stomach the art in this comic book.
Number 8.
Classic. What more can I say? A deeply human story about the mythos of what it means to be Batman. Is Batman an idea or is he a character? By interweaving the origins of Gordon before becoming the commissioner of the GCPD, with the return of Bruce Wayne and the start of his crime-fighting career, Year 1 serves really as a definitive origin story of not only Batman but Gotham. Truly, by allowing us to find our footing in Gotham and understand the corruption within the city from the fresh eyes of Gordon, it really lays the groundwork of why Gotham is the cesspool it becomes and why a figure like Batman is needed to create change. All in all, a really great introduction, but due to its limited scope, it kind of has to be sandwiched here in the middle. Not for a lack of trying, but mainly due to it accomplishing what it sets out to accomplish, telling a fantastic origin story.
Number 7.
Yeah, Batman is great, but he wouldn't be as great without the bad, and the bad that we all know, no matter who you are, is the Joker. The Joker in most Batman stories is the embodiment of pure evil, killing and causing mayhem for no other reason than that he finds it funny. There's no other way to put it. The Joker is beyond clinically insane. However, what about a book where Joker regains his sanity? What about a book where Joker not only regains his sanity, but uses it to do good? What about a book where Joker is now on the right side of the law, and the person on the other side is Batman? That's the premise of Batman White Knight, a completely different take on the Batman story. Here we see a more unhinged and realistic Batman who causes a lot more damage in his pursuit of vigilantism. Joker regains his sanity from taking some pills, which are shoved down by Batman, and afterwards decides to legally persecute Batman as a threat to the public. While this story is kind of plot-holy, it is a very unique and refreshing take on the Batman story and an overall great what-if story that we suggest to any Batman comic book fan.
Number 6.
Before we dive further into why Hush is ranked all the way in the 5th spot, we'd like to show you this image. What do you think? Now, here's a single panel from the 376-page Hush comic book. Honestly, the art style and overall vibe is what places Hush so high. The story probably isn't as good as the comics lower than it on this list, but to be honest, we don't have to act like we're all super sophisticated individuals that hyper-analyze and critique every story we read. If we were that smart, we'd be reading actual books instead. The truth is, art and vibe are half of a comic book and are what defines the medium. The art doesn't always have to be super impressive from a technical standpoint, but it should definitely match the vibe of the story, and Hush does that very, very well. I didn't want to put this book down while reading just because of how beautifully the story presented itself. The story itself is okay, it's kind of predictable, but that doesn't make it bad. Where Hush really shines is its presentation. The art, the dialogue, it's all wrapped up so gorgeously. The world is immersive and engaging, and we see the core components of a Batman story: mystery, tragedy, and pain. The pain of not knowing, the pain of not being able to fix things, the pain of not being able to be happy. We see Batman's relationship with Catwoman explored, and we see how depressing the life of Batman really is. All of this truly warrants Hush a top spot in the list of Batman comics, and if you disagree, well, we have just one word for you: Hush.
Number 5.
Of course, what is Batman without Robin? Or in the case of Jeff Lemire's Robin and Batman comic, what is Robin without Batman? Oftentimes, Robin is quite overlooked as just the upbeat protege of Batman, with most mainstream fans not knowing his real story and instead associating with that. But the truth is, Robin is just as, if not more, complex than Batman. We see not just the basic origin story of Robin in this comic, but a deep dive into the psychology of Robin and his turbulent relationship with Bruce, this time not through the rose-tinted glasses of most Batman and Robin comics. Even though the story only spans 3 issues, we get an incredibly emotional and beautiful telling of Robin's character, with an absolutely stunning watercolor art style that greatly complements the painful and sentimental themes of the story seen through a childlike lens. Just take a look at this panel sequence where we see how Robin is heavily conditioned into becoming the warrior Batman wants him to be when he's still just a child.
Number 4.
What if I told you there was one more Robin you've probably never heard of? What if I told you that Robin actually died a horrible, gruesome death and came back from the dead with a burning vengeance to make Batman pay for the fate he led him to? You'd probably be like, damn, that's a good story. And you'd be right. Under the Red Hood is a story that shows us something we don't see very often from Batman: his failures. While Batman is riddled with tragedy, and he's failed on numerous occasions, this one just feels different. All this time, we've believed Batman was acting virtuously by enlisting a broken and lone child to be his Robin, giving him a purpose and a way to channel their inner rage and her into something good. However, the story of Jason Todd, the failed Robin, shows us the depressing reality of Batman's actions. We get to see incredibly riveting themes of guilt, resentment, and a heart-wrenching story of a boy who felt betrayed by the only last person he believed he had. We get to see a deep dive into Batman's morality and whether he actually is an undeniably virtuous and admirable person. Specifically, one question: why doesn't he kill the Joker? Full disclosure though, this is probably the one case on this list where the movie is definitively better than the comic book and the version we'd recommend you see. Before we get into our top 3 Batman comics, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel if you enjoyed the video thus far. No, but seriously, go do it. You have 3 seconds.
Number 3.
Similar to The White Knight, Batman the Killing Joke by Alan Moore explores the mutualistic relationship of Batman and his arch-nemesis the Joker. In doing so, the story serves as not only a great read, but also an influential story that has really changed the mythos of Batman. At its core, Batman the Killing Joke goes the extra mile to present the Joker as a mirror of the Batman, and that they are creations of their own tragic one bad day, with Bruce's being the death of his parents and the Joker being his cumulative horrible day. Interestingly, Batman's tragedy is one from his past, and Joker's is his present and future dying, perhaps showing why they coped differently. As such, by contrasting the 2 characters from how they react to the tragedies, with one accepting a calling to find justice, whilst the other serves the principles of nihilism and chaos, the Killing Joke serves as a necessary staple in the Batman comics repertoire that serves as a great entry point if you're somewhat familiar with Batman.
Number 2.
Up until this point, we've talked about shorter contained runs, spanning a shorter amount of issues. However, the New 52 Batman run is definitely something to look into if you're interested in a longer and more faithful Batman comic to what you're probably used to. We see the Batman everyone is familiar with, a strong but broken man who turned to vigilantism to save others, but most importantly, himself. The first 3 volumes are absolute masterpieces, with the first 2 really shining. The first 2 volumes follow Batman's journey against an underground Illuminati syndicate in Gotham named the Court of Owls, exploring Batman's core themes of grief, mystery, corruption, and overall edgy detective style. If you consider yourself a fan of Batman, this is an absolute must-read and a staple in Batman's repertoire.
To number 1.
The GOAT, the pinnacle of Batman storytelling, remembered in the annals of history alongside literature's finest. In all seriousness though, All-Star Batman and Robin is definitely not a definitive story of Batman, or even the best one. However, it was one of the most enjoyable Batman reads I've found myself with. The story explores Batman and Robin through a different lens. To put it simply, who do you think Batman would be in the real world? Would he really be a virtuous and stoic persona? Or would he be a deranged, mentally insane lunatic flying through the city in a bat costume, beating up criminals to channel his inner rage and problems? One of the reasons why this story works as one of the best Batman stories is that it uses the character of Dick Grayson as a direct parallel to Bruce, to show how he can handle grief with those around us. In essence, the story breaks Batman down into a more realistic and unhinged psychopath, making the journey that both Dick and Bruce go on as one that critiques the psyche of heroes and how they would really be. Within this deep and somber look though, Miller still doesn't shy away from infusing humor into his stories, giving us some iconic scenes. The main problem with this comic was the marketing and how it was put under the All-Star title, which usually corresponds to definitive runs and encapsulates a hero's character. When reading this work, you should keep in mind that this is something very different and a more dark comedic take on the characters that we love. All in all, by doing all this with the fantastic artwork from none other than the GOAT himself, Jim Lee, All-Star Batman and Robin serves as the most entertaining and refreshing Batman read we've seen in a while. Still not convinced? Check out our video on why All-Star Batman and Robin is the greatest comic you've. So that's a definitive opinion on the ranking of Batman comics. If you disagree, please visit your nearest neurologist, but before that, please let us know your thoughts and ranking in the comments below. Also, if you have a Batman comic that we missed this time, please be sure to drop it down below so we can update the list. Want to stay up to date with more definitive opinions? Be sure to subscribe and hit that bell button to stay notified.